Go ahead.
All right. Okay, so it looks like we're live. Sweet. Can you guys see this DOM manipulation with JavaScript?
Yep.
Yep.
All right, just making sure I have the right screen. So yeah, DOM manipulation with JavaScript is my topic today. And just to start off, DOM stands for Document Object Model. It's a super common word used in web development. The DOM contains a set of different nodes that can be accessed using JavaScript. The HTML document is called a document node. HTML elements within the document are called element nodes, and HTML attributes are called attribute nodes. And then HTML text is the inner HTML, which is also called text nodes. And then there's also comments, which are called comment nodes. So all of the DOM is just a container of all of these different nodes that you can access through JavaScript as well as HTML. So the DOM is the document reference when we call a method like document.getElementById. So the DOM is the document, and then we apply the method getElementById onto it to search through the different nodes and find an element node with the same ID. So having this document as a container means that almost anything we can do with HTML can be done with JavaScript during runtime, which is powerful. Sometimes it causes a little bit more trouble than it's worth, but most of the time it's useful. I just laid out some useful methods that you can use with the DOM. The first one's create element. Obviously, it would just create a new element node. So that could be like a div, could be a p tag, an anchor tag, any kind of element you can create on the fly. Document.document element returns the document element of the document, which is the HTML tag. So that HTML tag is the actual document element. And we can get that with that method. I guess it's a property. Next one, getElementById. You guys have probably used that before. You just throw in an ID and it'll return the element node with that ID. There's also getElementsByClassName, which will return a node list, which is all the elements with the supplied class name. You can do the same thing with name. So it'll go through the attribute name on each of your element nodes and return all of those. And then you can do the same thing with the tag name. So I could do like find all getElementsByTagName div or getElementsByTagName A, and it will return all those elements for you. So those are just some of the more useful ones. Section is methods that you can perform on top of an element. So we could use this method, document getElementById, which would return an element, and then we could run a method on top of that returned element. Some of the more useful ones are append child, which would add a new child element node to that element node. Element.innerHTML would return the actual inner HTML of that element. Insert before, which would insert an element node before that element node that we have. Or we could just remove a child from that element. So yeah, there's a ton more different elements and attributes and properties that you can use with the DOM as well as element nodes. I just wanted to give kind of a brief rundown of some of the more useful stuff. So I have a code example. Pull that up. So right here we have, let me just inspect so you guys can actually see stuff. There we go. All right. So this list of items is an H4, and then underneath that we have an unordered list, which is called list1, or the ID is list1. And then inside that unordered list, we have 3 nodes, first, second, and third. And then I have these buttons, create a new element and remove created element. So this create new element, let me see if I can show you guys. the script. So create element 1 right here. So we would initialize a new element, which would be using the document.create element. We'd save that to this var right here. Then we could set an attribute. We set the ID to create a div. And then we can get a new text node, which would be the inner HTML, and assign that to a var. And then we're able to take our element that we created up here at line 92, and we append the text node, which would be dynamic text has been created. Super creative, I know. And then we can get another element, list 1, which would be that unordered list I talked about before by ID. And then we can do list element dot parent node dot insert before. So it'll go up, it'll find the div, and it'll insert it before our list 1. So it should just insert just a regular div before that. And we have the button remove created element, which would just go and grab the element by the ID, created div, get the list element, and then it'll get the parent node of the list, and then it'll remove the child that we added before with this insert before on line 98. So hopefully that's not too confusing. It sounded confusing when I said it, but hopefully it'll make sense. So when we click on create a new element, we add this dynamics text has been created. And so this is the parent div of the list 1 that I talked about before. So just add before the list 1 this new div, which it did. And we can add like as many as we want. And then the remove created element will just look up this ID, created div, and we can delete them one by one. Normally you would want to create like a unique ID, so it's not confusing when you have a bunch of different elements with the same ID, but this one lets you delete them after you add them. So yeah, for me, anybody have any questions? Anything confusing?
No, it was very good.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks.
Sweet.
I guess it's my turn then.
Sir.
Oh my gosh. So I've got 3 monitors, and okay, yeah, it shows that one. Okay, good. All right. So this is kind of going to be more focused on I don't know, kind of more like patterns, or patterns of development, really. So I figured that we should just start out with this first, just the raw code. So let's start with problem 1. This is inheritance by pseudo-classical instantiation. And those terms, you know, they're a bit confusing, but basically pseudo-classical is this. It's where you're taking this object here, father, and you're writing the prototype for it. So you say father.prototype.getName, and it returns the property name. And then the way that you instantiate this is you go down to, in my case, my problem 1 function. You create a new object named father. Say new father, pass in Jethro, that's his name. And then this is where things get interesting. You do son.prototype equals father. And as you can see up here, we have another object named son, and it's equal to function age, this dot age. Now something to note about pseudo-classical is that once you set the son's prototypes to the father, you lose all functionality with the son's prototypes. You can't use them. And this tripped me up a lot at first because I was very confused as to why I couldn't use use the son's functions anymore. But then I found out that it's because we're overloading this prototype with the father's prototypes. Now, this is where I'm going to turn to you guys. Have you guys heard of any other way of inheritance in JavaScript that retains the functionality of the son's prototypes or the derived classes prototypes? I'm just kind of like throwing that question out there.
Yeah, you should be able to do the same thing just without prototyping the functions.
Mm-hmm.
And then the son should inherit. Well, I mean, father to son, the father should have a son element, not the, well, I guess the son should have a father too. But yeah, if you just do a new father and then you do father.son equals new son,
Mm-hmm.
you're inheriting the son, and you can use all of those methods.
Oh, wow. Well, that seems obvious now. It's
yeah, with the prototyping is a little bit different. It's a little more complex. I'm not super familiar with prototyping in JavaScript, but
well, yeah, that's the interesting thing, because this was the only way I found of doing inheritance. But I guess I don't know. I guess I was looking at it from the wrong perspective, because I'm coming at it from C++, and I'm too used to like classes and things.
yeah, it's pretty different.
All right. Well, I guess I'll have to try that some other time. But okay, so yeah, as you said, there's another way of doing inheritance, but this is another way too, where you just overload the prototypes. Well, I might as well. Oh, refresh it. So we've got father.getName. Oh, this is wrong though, because this is just a father.getName for the son. That's the interesting thing too. You can pull properties out of the son because they're not privatized or anything like that. Well, or actually, no. 12? No, yeah. You can pull properties out of them because you've got father up here. Get age, return this age, which is a son property. All right. So let's move on to problem number 2. You've got properties, methods, and instantiation. Where to begin? All right. So there's 4 types of instantiation. You've got functional instantiation, functional shared instantiation, prototypal instantiation, and then pseudo-classical. Pseudo-classical was this one with the dot prototype. What we're going to be looking at now is functional. Yeah. All right. So this is the default constructor for the functional stuff, and the things to note here are that this object being returned from the functional. Sorry, I get mixed up with all these different types. Okay, yeah. So functional is just defined like within the body of the object here. And this poses kind of an interesting situation for the computer to deal with, because every time you instantiate this object here, melon, it will create a copy, and it will let's say you instantiated like 5 melons, it will create a copy for each of these functions every time. And I just want you to keep that in mind as we go forward. So with melon here, the properties are var a, oh wait, no. Properties are green, object size, and then seeds. So this is just a little fun math thing I put together. If we instantiate that, you can see that it's in problem 2 here. There we go. In problem 2, we're just instantiating the class. It's calling its member functions, and it's pretty much the same as you would do it any other way. Yeah, so it returns properties green. The watermelon takes up 41 cubic inches, and it has seeds. Now we'll move on to prototypal instantiation, which is var object dog. All right, so this is where things get a little bit more interesting in terms of how the computer manages this. Okay, so we've got a object that we're instantiating here within dog, which is object.create obj methods. So what we're doing is we're sending a reference to this object about where its methods are, and its methods are down here. This is just another object containing all these methods. This is where memory management gets a little bit better because, like, let's say, I don't know, for some reason you wanted just the properties of this object, and you don't want to worry about the methodology. You could, I don't know, potentially put something in the code to like turn that off completely, and then you can just have full access to the properties of the object. It's one of those things where it's kind of interesting to think about. So inherently, prototypal instantiation is a bit more efficient with memory, just because you can like pick and choose what things get loaded in. But yeah, just basic returning stuff to HTML here. So breed of dog, Labrador, weight 64 pounds, mood of dog is bored. And then we get to the last form of instantiation, which is functional shared instantiation. And I don't know, for some reason I have a hard time envisioning why you would use this. But I guess I'll go ahead and explain it anyway. So we're making an object called truck. Here's the default constructor. You can see its properties there. And it extends. There's this method. Okay, so there's an object here that you have to call, which is extend, or I named it extend. And you pass in two variables. You pass in the object, like the empty object here, and then object methods. And these are the same. I just should probably change the names of these so that they're consistent. But anyway, what this does is that you have this object down here that contains all your functions. And then what extend does is it will manually load in those methods into your object for you. So there's just a for loop here that keys through all the methods down here. And if you think that's kind of funny, I do too. I'm like I said, I'm not really sure why you would use this. I could see for memory management reasons, but if you're worrying about memory with JavaScript, you've probably got other problems you have to deal with.
So true.
Yeah, this is also just really simple. It just returns this stuff to this page here. And that's about it for instantiation. Those are the four main types of it, basically.
So like for that second one and the third one, is the only difference that you have this for loop that goes through and looks at the keys for each one?
Yep, that's it.
That's it.
It's
That's weird.
like I said, I'm not really sure why you would use it.
The only
like scenario,
because it's like you almost never use JavaScript in this way. So yeah, this is interesting.
Yeah. Like I said, I can the only like scenario I can see this being useful for is if you have like, I don't know, maybe sections of code that only want to reference, maybe like functions 1 and 3, and so you skip over 2.
Yeah.
But That's it. Like you said, there's really no use for this. It's an exercise in semantics.
That's cool.
But yeah, I think that's about it. And you guys already know about properties, methods, stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah, we covered methods. So yeah, these basically methods are just your functions. Any questions?
I don't have anything. Thanks.
None
All right.
here.
I think that's about it. How do I close out of this again? There we go. Okay. Well, I think that's about everything for me. Oh, I did get my question answered about. So you saw how like that website was laid out, problem 1, 2, and 3. I got an email back from the professor saying that that format was completely fine. He already graded one of mine and says that it's perfect for what he's looking for.
Oh, you already got a grade? I still haven't gotten any. It's kind of making me nervous.
Yeah, I'm trying to get stuff done before Stranger Things season 2 comes out. I've been working ahead.
Awesome. Yeah, so Chris hasn't said anything, so I think we're good to go.
All right. Well, poor Chris. Maybe he's, I don't know, maybe he's stuck somewhere or something.
Hopefully not.
All right. Well, you guys take care.
Yeah, you too. Talk to you later.